Thank you very much, Daily Trust. Well, two very important questions, one on the issue of tightening and the other on the issue of backlogs of forward transactions. Now, let me say that, yes, from our perspective, the key thing for us as a central bank is to be fully focused on our core mandate. And that core mandate basically is to fight inflation and to ensure price stability. So there's no ambiguity in that, and there's no compromise on that. We are very, very concerned that the purchasing power of the average Nigerian should be restored to the levels that they know it to be. And what we are saying is that going forward, we expect that if the environment is such that requires us to tighten, we will tighten. Our projections, however, indicate that things will begin to moderate from about May onwards. And the projection, as you may know, is that by the end of the year, we're expecting the inflationary rates to have come down significantly. So we believe that we're on the right course, and of course, one particular area of cheer as a result of the actions we have taken is the moderation in the foreign exchange rate, which you have seen. Now, don't take the foreign exchange in isolation, because it does have major pass-through to inflation. And to the extent that we've seen this happen, and we expect it will continue to moderate, we are confident that these tools and measures that the central bank is using will ensure that, the inflationary spiral will gradually be brought under stricter control. Of course, from the MPC's standpoint, the MPC does make decisions based on economic data and, of course, market conditions. So as the next MPC, which which I've announced will be taken in May, they will obviously look at the existing variables and make a decision accordingly. I hope that will answer the question on tightening. Then, with respect to growth, yes, there appears to be a trade-off of some sort. But the good news is that we expect the tightening to not be long drawn. That really is the good news. We don't expect this to be something that will subsist into too long into the future. And of course, if the right responses are happening in the economy, then I have no doubt that the MPC will take the decision it has to take to properly ensure that the situation into the future is able to take the growth considerations adequately as they should be. With respect to the foreign exchange forwards, now I think it may be important to say a few things with respect to the context. Now, recall that when we came in September, we had a backlog of forward transactions which were contractual in nature and which had already been, as I say, contracted before we came in. Now, it was clear to us that it was very important in the interest of the credibility of the central bank, which at that point in time was very much in question, that we were able to satisfy and take care of these forwards. And if you recall, during the Senate hearings, I had actually made reference to this and said that this would be a priority to ensure that we take care of these forwards within the resource constraints we had and as soon as we could. And that was why, on a regular basis, I tried to address the issue, address the press, and be transparent as possible to allow Nigerians to know exactly where we stood and what we were doing. And you will recall that during that period, we settled, certain tranche, and then we got wind of the fact that, well, there were a number of transactions which, quite frankly, had some issues with respect to the genuineness of them. So we said, well, in that case, the best thing may be to let us get a well-reputed organization that can do a proper forensic of the transactions that are so defined as forward contracted transactions. And that was how we came across and brought in Deloitte management consultants who took time, and this really did take months. This is not something that happened overnight, and a lot of this work was going on and people didn't know. But they took months painstakingly to go through all the documents, and to ensure that, they had a report which we could rely on. In the course of that, of course, we determined that a number of these transactions did not qualify, and I've said this before. In some cases, you had some requests which, well, you actually had some allocations that were made in millions of dollars, which were never requested for. You also had some where they had no naira, and they were also allocated, huge sums of foreign exchange, and the list goes on. And it was for that reason that we refused to validate those particular transactions. We refused to validate them because, apart from the fact that documentation was not satisfactory, in many cases they were outright illegal. And the law enforcement agencies, of course, are now looking into those transactions that are, as far as we're concerned, not valid to be paid. I would emphasize that if there's any information to the contrary, we would in due course consider that. But as at today, that is exactly where it stands, and the law enforcement agencies are taking a very, very hard look at those transactions. Other transactions we have settled, and as at today, as I have said before, I will say it again, that the valid transactions, as far as the Central Bank of Nigeria is concerned, have been taken care of. We are also not mindful of the fact that there just may be some stakeholders who, over a period of time, may have had backlogs in one form or the other. We are not unmindful that could be the case, that some of those may go back, years, a long period of time. We've done what we can to make the market as open and transparent and liquid as possible. So those particular stakeholders are free to access those markets and take care of their backlogs. Okay, but we have met the verified backlogs of contractual obligations as we deem them forward transactions.